Hello everyone, welcome to This Day. It is Saturday, May 9th. I'm Michael Taylor. I'm here at the desk. As you always know, we got a big packed show for you, so let's get right to it. Lots to talk about with our guests today. We have Hoag Medical Center's Dr. Yuichi Ishida and Dr. Howie Tran. They're going to be talking with Bree a little later in the program. And then El Toro Water District, everything you've ever wanted to know about the Water District and their water treatment plans and their plans for the future. We're going to be talking about that with their president, Catherine Freshley, so stay tuned for that. Right now, though, we want to keep you informed, and we got clubs to talk about. Absolutely. It is the Club Expo coming up. It's going to be Monday, May 18th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. over at Clubhouse 5. Discover new ways you can be part of the community and all sorts of clubs that we have here. So get out there and enjoy the Club Expo. They do it every year. More information, call the rec department. All right, let's check our weather forecast, and we got a great weekend for the rest of this weekend. We are in warm temperature, 79 degrees today, 83. That's going to be our top out on Sunday. That's going to be our warmest day of the week. And then we start a slow tapering off on Monday, and then back to cooler temperatures as the high pressure kind of moves out and the cooler coastal influence comes on shore. 75 and 73 by Wednesday. A nice cool off there. Okay, when we come back, Bree's going to be talking to the folks from Hoag. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Here to give us all the details about the Advanced Heart Failure Program at Hoag, I welcome Drs. Howie Tran and Yuichi Ishida. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
How are you two?
Good. Thanks for having us here.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know this is a really important topic. I've known people personally who have suffered from advanced heart disease, and we kind of want to get to the surrounding benefits and everything that Hoag is offering in terms of this disease. But what I want to get to first is all about you two.
Great.
We've shared just a little bit of a conversation before our segment, and your lives have been parallel a little bit and kind of overlapping, and now here you are again and working together over at Hoag. Dr. Howie, tell us how you got led into this field.
Great question, Bree. And Yuichi and I spent some time in San Diego. He was training, I was a faculty member, and so we knew that this was a space that we could potentially really collaborate on here in Orange County when he landed about 8 months ago, and I've been here for about 6 weeks ago. But if you were to rewind the whole story all the way back to medical school and cardiology training, heart training and all that, I was fascinated with taking care of the sickest patients. I knew what really got me excited and what got me up in the morning was knowing that I was going to the ICU, knowing that somewhere in the community, I trained at Brown University, so I knew somewhere in the community of Providence, there was somebody that was going to get really sick. And either they're in the hospital already or they're in the community, but I knew that they were going to come, they're going to hit our ER, they're going to come to our cath lab and into the ICUs, and I'd be the one taking care of them. And that got me really excited about cardiovascular disease. Dr. Kadar was here talking about all the different disciplines of cardiology. We're where the buck stops. We're the ones that really take care of the sickest patients with cardiovascular disease. And that's why I stuck with it. And I did a lot of my training out on the East Coast, came back to the West Coast in UC San Diego for my last leg of training, and that was transplant cardiology. And so that's what I've loved for the last 12 years, building that program in San Diego. And now we're bringing it to Orange County, where I'm from.
You come full circle.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. What a great story. I want to touch more on that a little bit later. But Dr. Iishi?
Yes. So for me, that I wanted to be a surgeon since when I was like 8 or 10-year-old. I think it fascinated me that the hand coordination and like sewing meticulously. And then you have to solve the problem and you have to think a lot. That all fascinated me. So I wanted to be a surgeon. I did my general surgery training first, and then I still like to do like hand sewing meticulously. So that kind of led me to a cardiac surgery journey. But originally I'm from Japan. I lived in California in my childhood. But I graduated med school in Japan and worked for 2 years, but then came to United States for surgical training. And I did my cardiac surgery training in a UCSD. UC San Diego, and that's where I met Howie and worked together. After that training, I went to Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, and I practiced for 6 years at the high volume center, and I took care of a lot of the advanced heart failure patients, which we're gonna talk about it. And then now I'm excited that I had this great opportunity to start the program and in Orange County and serve the community.
Okay, fantastic. Well, let's talk about the program, and I'm glad that your paths crossed again. It's nice to have you both here. But let's go back to the basics now and talk about what exactly is heart failure.
Yeah, I'll take this question. It's a wonderful question. I think a lot of the viewers would think as well too, heart failure, what a terrible name, right?
Yeah.
It's really the heart hasn't stopped. It's really not working. So I tend to call it heart dysfunction, or that the heart's just not doing its thing. And just like in nature, the heart's a pump. So when anytime a pump in nature doesn't work, then pressure builds up, the volume builds up. Well, in our heart, in our body, the blood backs up to the lungs. The blood can back up to our gut, and the pump isn't doing its job. So a lot of our patients will start to have symptoms of shortness of breath because the lungs are just so full of volume and pressure. And these patients can't lay down flat. They oftentimes will have multiple pillows just so they can breathe a little bit better when they're laying in bed. Or they'll lay in their recliner and get that head of the recliner up a little bit as well too. Our patients tend to swell up a little bit. So there are a lot of reasons as to why the heart is dysfunctioned. And previously in other iterations of interviews, there are electrical reasons, there are plumbing reasons, there are carpentry reasons, and structural reasons. But what's very attractive about what we do is that we're basically the contractor. We're trying to figure out generally what's really going on, who done it, and why is the heart so weak, so that we can have a better sense of how to help our patients moving forward with whatever therapy. So heart failure is a term that we all use. It's all in media and science, but it's really a dysfunction heart, and figuring out why the heart's not pumping the way that it should.
Dr. Howie, does that come from childhood, childbirth, or is that something that's progressive, that happens to older age?
Yeah.
Is there any differentiation about
great question. And
who it happens to?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, because when you see patients, I have patients who are in 19, 20, they're young 20s.
Really?
I have patients into their 70s and 80s. Dr. Yoshida does a fair amount of bypass surgery as well too in patients who have coronary disease. So when Dr. Mila and Dr. Kedar were here, they were talking about plumbing issues. If the stents don't work or the patients aren't candidates for stents, then they could be candidates for bypass surgery, which Dr. Yoshida, Dr. Sun perform. So that's one flavor of heart dysfunctioning, is that the plumbing isn't working so well. Well, there's a big group of patients that are born with genetic abnormalities and mutations that can cause the heart to be weak as well too. And with our advanced heart failure program, this new program at Hoag, we're going to dive really deep into taking a look at those types of etiologies or reasons as to why the heart is so weak.
Right.
So it's a huge gamut of what we're born with, what we're exposed to. A lot of coronary disease is based on our diet, based on our genes, based on smoking and some of these other unhealthy habits as well too. But at the end of it, it's we sit down, Yuichi and I talk about who done it and how do we fix it.
Right. Well, that brings me to my next question, Dr. Yuichi. When the standard treatments are no longer enough, what additional options are available?
Yeah, so if patients are struggling even with the optimized medical therapy, then the next option would be a surgery called LVAD. It's a left ventricular assist device. So LVAD is a small pump that's that attached to the heart and then suction the blood and then kind of help circulate the blood into the body. So we sew the graft into the aorta, that's the big artery coming out of the heart. And then you assist the LVAD will assist the circulation. And your patient will have a drive line coming out of either side of the abdominal wall. That'll be the kind of battery charger cable.
Oh, really?
And this LVAD it will help kind of energy, improve the energy, breathing, and the quality of life. And in many cases, it helps live them longer.
Does it seem odd to have something like that inside your body? How big is the device?
About maybe smaller than my fist.
From the images, it looks pretty large.
Yeah, it's on a,
Yeah.
yeah. But it'll be inside of the chest, so patient won't be able to feel it.
Well-
The only thing they can see is the driveline cable, which is probably like size of my index finger.
And so they literally have to plug themselves in.
Right, yep.
They'll have battery packs that they'll wear, and they oftentimes, our patients will have these vests that they wear too. I have a pair of patients who I'm very fond of. They're 40-year-old guys, both guys, one in Vegas and one out here in Costa Mesa. And they have these vests. It's almost like fishing vests. So they walk around. You don't notice the batteries, and it's a situation where it's uncomfortable at first, but within the first couple of days, our patients tend to get used to it.
No, they don't sleep with these devices or the battery packs, do they?
No, they can take it off and then they can just plug in the cable. They don't have to wear this battery pack or anything.
Medical science is fascinating, isn't it?
It's great.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah.
Listening to these stories is fantastic because you start to hear stories of 40-year-old guys who can barely walk from here to outside the studio, or walking to the parking lot is a chore for a lot of these patients.
Right.
And patients shouldn't feel that way. They shouldn't feel so limited, especially when
Right.
they're so young.
Exactly. Yeah. It sounds like the quality of life really improves
Yes.
with this device.
Yeah, we have. I have a patient that I walked the 5K with, 3 miles with in Vegas, the rock and roll. So those are the types of things that our patients are able to do with this device. We joke around. He's so young. We joke around that he's Iron Man, and having this type
yeah,
of device
yeah.
just powering him.
I can see that.
yeah.
So, what are some of the symptoms that people should be watching out for?
Yeah, so the symptoms, most immediately, it's not a subtle situation. I think with coronary disease and some of the chest pain issues, that can vary. But with heart failure, it's not subtle. It is shortness of breath. It is the inability to take a full breath in because the heart isn't doing its job. It's swelling that can happen as well too. Someone's legs are just blown up and the abdomen is blown up because the heart's not pumping fluid or blood the way that it ought to. And so patients do feel it. So if patients in this community, if you start to have shortness of breath and if you've got a history of heart disease, it may be heart failure. If you've got some swelling in the legs or the abdomen swelling, it may be that. If there's discomfort laying down flat just watching TV, that may be due to heart failure as well too. So those are the cardinal symptoms that I take a look at. Some of the other symptoms would be palpitation sometimes lightheadedness and dizziness.
Sure. Dr. Tran, is that a gradual thing that happens, the leg swelling or the abdomen?
Wonderful question. Usually, the great majority of times, it's the left side of the heart that is injured and for some reason not doing what it's supposed to do. Then the first symptoms oftentimes are the lungs because the lungs are right next to the heart.
Right.
And then through time, the patients are going to be able to see fluid back up and the extremities and the abdomen. And so that's through time, that's what we tend to see with a lot of our patients. At the advanced stages, our patients aren't able to eat well because they're so congested. Their appetite drops. They have early satiety, which means that meal that they used to be able to just eat fine, they'll eat half of it.
Not interested.
Yeah, because it's just very uncomfortable.
Interesting. Wow. So, why should patients consider Hoag?
So Hoag, we brought together highly specialized team so that we can deliver top tier advanced heart failure care here in Orange County without them traveling elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah, so and Yuichi and I talked a lot about this as well too. I grew up in Irvine, and I went to Woodbridge High School, and so shout out to any Warriors. But growing up in Irvine, I knew that there were, if I had a loved one that had to go to a hospital, we weren't going to go anywhere east of, let's say, the 5. We knew that. We weren't going to go at the time Irvine Medical Center. We were going to go Hoag.
Right.
And this cultural and community memory is so strong that if one were to be sick, it would be Hoag. And to me, the blessing is now I get the opportunity to come back full circle to work for an institution and a hospital that I loved growing up. And to bring that knowledge that we both have from San Diego and Iowa back to a true community hospital like Hoag is the true blessing.
Wow. Well, it's been a blessing having you two on the show today. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for all of your knowledge and for helping the community.
Thanks for having
Thank you.
us.
Dr. Tran Yuishi, thank you. You're watching This Day on Village TV. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I've got El Toro Water District President Catherine Freshley here with me today. She's going to be talking about our water infrastructure.
Right.
And many things that I didn't even know that you've already, you've sat here for 1 minute and you've brought so much awareness to the water infrastructure.
Well, I think, what are they, as a society, most people take the infrastructure of the society for granted. That includes water, that includes all the sewers, that includes even the electrical distribution system. I'm an electrical engineer, and I worked for General Electric back in the 60s and 70s when we built this, when we built for the country, the grid. And people just take advantage, think they throw a switch on, the light's going to come on.
Well,
They
it
turn the
does.
water faucet on, the
We're
water's
lucky.
going to come out. They flush the toilet, and it's going to, and the waste is going to dispose. But behind all that, to make that happen, are agencies like El Toro Water District, or you got Southern California Edison here, and so without those services, we couldn't have the society we have.
Right.
And I think that's a fundamental thing. And so that society, though, having that costs money.
That's a lot of money.
And that's what I want to make sure that the community understands, that, we're planning 10 years ahead. We're looking at having to spend about $114 million just to ensure that our infrastructure can service this community, as well as we service also Laguna Hills, Lake Forest, Mission Viejo, and some of Aliso Viejo. Now, we don't
That is
service
not
all of those. We don't service all of Mission Viejo. We serve part of it. We serve part of Lake Forest. We share that with Irvine Ranch Water District. See? So, in Southern California, here in south of the basin, because the northern Orange County, they're over a water reservoir. So they can get, much of their water comes out of the ground.
Wow.
All of us in South County rely on the water from the Sierras coming down the California Aqueduct, or coming from the Colorado River and the Colorado Aqueduct.
Right.
So we have to import all of the water. And when Cortese developed the community, back in the 80s, El Toro was, back in the 60s actually, okay? And El Toro had been founded at that point. And so we started to supply the water to them. Our plan of what we have to spend for the next 10 years, and by different colors, where it's going to be spent. And you'll see that the orange is aqua, which is basically the ocean outfall. We'll talk about later that all the water that we don't use here has to be cleaned before it goes to the ocean. And then we have a pipeline that goes from here and deposits the water in the ocean down by Laguna Beach. But that's our responsibility to make sure that we take care of that. Okay?
Right.
And then the other big one is the amount of time and money we're going to be spending at the waste treatment plant. That waste treatment plant was built by Cortese when he developed the community, because the golf course, which you're showing right here, when it was built by Cortese back in the early 60s, in order to water it, he had one of the first golf courses that was maintained and didn't use fresh water, but used recycled water.
Oh,
Now, it wasn't to the level that we do now,
sure.
but that's what he had brought. And so we bought that plant from him in the mid 80s, okay, from the family. We bought it from the family.
Right.
So that's that. So we have to spend. We're going to be spending quite a bit of money there, because that thing's 60 years old. And I'll show you some slides of what we see, the kind of things that, the damage that just naturally takes place. And that's what we have to fight with.
Okay.
This slide is showing basically this is the R6 reservoir. That was built by El Toro, and it's a 275 million gallon reservoir, but it's covered.
Right.
The difference is we can store then fresh water in there that's been cleaned and ready to drink. Okay, most reservoirs that are open, you can't do that.
Can't drink.
You got to treat it when it comes out. We have a very slight amount of treatment. Having that reservoir makes us really quite unique because we own 45% of that. We built it and then we sold and shared it now with our Santa Margarita Water District has 50% of it, about 55% of it, or 50% of it, and Molten Miguel has 5%, and so we maintained 45% of it. So they share in the cost, and a couple of years ago, it cost us over $27 million to put a new cover on and a new layer in.
Wow.
But see, that reservoir for this community is critical for an emergency. If we lost the source of water from Northern California or from the Colorado River, we have enough water there, depending on time of the year, to get through about 2 months, 60 days of operation without any additional water coming in. That's enough time to fix, we figure, to fix whatever's preventing the water coming from upper Northern California
Right.
or from the Colorado River. So that's a safety provision for us. Now the next slide shows, within the community, we have these steel tank reservoirs. They have to be, maintained. Those were built just here in the village. Most people don't realize it. Just on the other side of the Ayers Hotel, we got 2 reservoirs. Okay, R2 and R3 are up on the hill. You don't see it behind the trees. You go, and you got a reservoir.
We'll look for them now.
Yeah, and if you drive around, you go to Clubhouse 5. You go, you look over to the west. You'll see a big reservoir there. That's our reservoir also.
Wow.
So those reservoirs actually feed the water then directly and maintain the pressures then to the community. Now we have a couple other reservoirs on the other side of the freeway to serve the other customers, okay? But to maintain those reservoirs, because they're all steel, and periodically we have to go through because if there's any rusting, that has to be, because you're storing drinking water in them.
Right.
So they have to be clean. And so the process really of coating them and cleaning them, and which has to be done periodically, and we're, it's about $2 million for each reservoir. So we got 5 of those. That's $10 million that we have to spend periodically just to maintain the level of service we've been able to give you.
That's amazing.
And these are the things that people just don't see, they don't understand. And my God, they say, well, water shouldn't cost anything. But it's getting the water to somebody that's in a drinkable state and then removing it and taking it away without creating health issues.
Right.
Those are the real keys of living in a society of our own, that we have.
Right.
If we were farmers, we'd have a septic tank someplace and we'd have a well someplace else, and hopefully they're not connecting to each other.
Yeah, hopefully
And
they're
that
not
happens. But
contaminated.
those of us who grew up in the Midwest, we're familiar with, when I grew up, yeah, we had pumps, we had wells, we had septic tanks that had to be periodically cleaned. The lifestyle has changed dramatically, and for most people in the community now, if depending upon where they grew up, have never had the experience of living on in a situation where you don't have what we're providing, the services that are provided. And so our what you pay us is for the services to make sure you stay healthy and you have the water you need. So this slide really gives you an idea of this is the waste treatment plant. That which we bought from Cortese, which was built in the early 60s. And you could see the remains of just what it's going to take to improve that. You can see the damage.
A lot of
and this is
corrosion.
a safety issue and, and a reliability problem, because we can't continue. That picture on the right is one of the very first clarifiers. That was built by Cortese back in '62.
Yeah, it's time.
See? So,
time.
there's a lot of money involved in getting that. The next page is electrical equipment. And that in itself now, you'd say, well, electric is still working. Yeah, the panel on the left is an older panel, made back in the 80s. And, you know, and as an electrical engineer, I know a lot of panels that were built, we didn't build, you know, major manufacturers, we understood arc flash and a lot of issues. We wouldn't have built panels of that nature when I was an engineer at GE. But panel builders, they did it. They followed the basic electrical codes at the time. And what has changed a lot, see, the older panels nowadays don't meet the arc flash. And arc flash means that if there's a flash that happens here and a man's standing there, you have to be far enough away that he doesn't get killed.
Oh my gosh.
And it is hazardous. And this gives you an example of the new panels that we're in the process of putting in. Each of those are about $160,000 each. So, and every pump station, and you know, whether it's waste treatment or water pump station, to get them to move the water or to move the sewage requires electrical equipment.
Right, right.
Okay? The next slide is actually a lot of people in the community are very familiar with this because we've been talking to you know, GRF, we've talked to, you know, VMS, we've talked with United particularly, because the Aliso Creek lift station, sewage lift station, was built by Cortese back in the early 60s when he was developing gates 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is, people who live in that area are familiar with it. And the purpose of that pump station is to get the sewage that comes from all those houses up on the hill near gate 4, you get flowing it down, and because there's a hill, if you go from gate 1, you know, toward clubhouse 3, notice how you go up a hill and then down a hill? Well, if you got sewage you got to move, you got to get over that hill to get it to the waste treatment plant.
Right.
This pump station does that, okay? That's the whole purpose of it. If we didn't have it, all the sewage, if we had a problem there, would go right into Aliso Creek.
Right, right.
Toward the ocean. The last slide, it just shows you all the issues that we have of
Yeah.
replacing the Tektite, replacing how just, you know, when we have pipes going across the creek, natural erosion you got to deal with. I feel personally this information is so critically important
It is.
to residents,
Agreed.
you know, so that they really have an understanding of what's happening, what it takes, and actually when they look at their monthly, they don't see it in their monthly assessment because it's paid for in the, you know, I mean, it's paid in the assessment, so they don't get a water bill. They don't get a sewer bill. But basically, everybody in the community, the water and sewer bill is about $90 a month. Single-family homes, you know, like in Lake Forest and places like that, end up paying about $140. So you're saving by living in the group, but there's still money that's required in order to provide the services.
Catherine, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate all your information. I know the viewers have gained a lot of knowledge out of it.
Well, I hope so, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're watching This Day on Village TV. We'll be back in a minute.
Monday on the program, folks, we're going to be welcoming folks from the India Club and Boomers, and I'll be here as well, so stay tuned for that one. That's going to do it for this edition of This Day. I'm Michael Taylor. For all of us here at Village Television, and we hope you make this day a great one.